let's start our session, and I'm gonna give mic to Boyka, and she's gonna talk about Chasio T setup.
Hello, everyone. Good to see so many people this time, and hopefully we'll make it up for the last time. We unfortunately had to cancel our meeting, so we are gonna be touching on an important part of the whole tea experience today, talking about chasi, or the tea space, as we could probably translate it in a most accurate way in English. I believe that everyone among you has some kind of dedicated small space, small or not that small, that you specifically go to prepare and to enjoy your tea. Whether we're talking about, an entire room, just a small corner of the room, or even just a plain table setup, or just some kind of mat setup. But anyway, a space that is essentially dedicated to your tea ritual. So this is more or less the meaning of chasi, or tea space. Essentially, it is a space to experience and enjoy tea. So chasi is, of course, a vital part of the entire tea experience, because first of all, setting up a harmonized space is a vital part of the whole tea experience. It is also very important in helping us reaching this kind of calmer and more meditative, more contemplative kind of state, where we are able to tune in to the present moment and just enjoy what we are experiencing here and now. So how can we define chasi? In fact, this is a term that has both a more narrow and direct meaning, and also a broader meaning. But to understand it fully, let's see how it developed through history, because in fact, just a small hint, the Chinese term chasi, or tea space, as we translate it today, is actually a modern kind of term. This notion didn't exist in antiquity, and at least not in China. So if we go back to where it all started for tea in terms of tea ritual and a specific kind of tea art or tea ceremony, as we often refer to it in the Western world, we have to go back as far as the Tang Dynasty, or this is the 7th century, where it was a flourishing era for tea art and a tea culture. So this was the time when Lu Yu created the world's first book, the first tractate on tea, the famous Chajing, where he kind of systematized all the available information up to that point on how to grow, how to prepare, how to serve, and very important, how to enjoy tea. So this was the time, this was the first moment actually in the history of tea where tea started to form a culture of its own. So all the kind of, summarizing the then aesthetic values and pursuits of the time into this kind of cultural symbol that tea is, and the way it represents the entire culture of the then Chinese Empire. So this trend evolved further with the following Song Dynasty. So this was almost 1,000 years ago. And this is when the tea gathering really started to take on from that point. So all kinds of poets, all kinds of artists and literati found their inspiration in tea and tea drinking. So big tea gatherings and a smaller, more intimate tea gatherings too were organized, often in the open space, where all these literati would gather and recite poems and draw paintings, and they will sip tea and talk about the meaning of life. And this is also the point where the imperial court followed and started to arrange those lavish banquets, tea feasts with exuberant and sometimes even excessive decoration, because the Song dynasty was the time of the grandeur in things and the kind of excess that was very typical for this age. So this was the time when people actually started to decorate their tea tables with some arts, like objects of arts, artwork, and some objects from nature. Then those practices like incense sticks and flower arrangements also stuck to this tea experience and to those tea gatherings. There were also paintings and scrolls that became this part of the tea space and the whole tea ritual. So sometimes we even talk, because there are those so-called the four arts of antiquity that some people would refer to as the flower arrangement and incense burning and painting and tea art. However, even at that time where tea culture saw its pinnacle in terms of ancient China, the notion of tea space or cha si, as this is defined in Chinese, didn't exist at that time. Actually, this term has formed in much more modern times. Some sources suggest that it first appeared in Taiwan, not even on the continent. And from Taiwan, it spread to the China mainland. But actually, the term cha si, so cha is refers to tea, and si, this part of the term actually evolved from the words for wine feast or banquet. So wine feast in Chinese is called jiu xi, and banquet is called yan xi. So the term xi also represents some kind of, lavish gathering with lots of food and lots of decoration, kind of feasting. So it refers to some kind of feasting. And from those terms actually evolved from the term for wine feast and banquet, and tea was formed, this term for cha si. So actually, because we're talking about banquets and some kind of, feasts, so these were initially referring to some kind of, lavish celebrations organized by the by the wealthy and the noble class, who were, who had their priority in tasting and sipping and enjoying in such a noble, let's say, way, the tea beverage. But actually, those tea gatherings that started in the Tang and the Song dynasty, they also transformed into more intimate and more on a smaller scale kind of tea gatherings. And this is how the tea houses and the tea rooms were born in the subsequent dynasties of Ming and Qing dynasty. So we are going back again, like maybe 700 to 500 years ago, let's say at the late Ming dynasty. So at this time, there were no more those, grandiose tea gatherings in the open with lots of poets and literati and painters. It was more intimate. The whole tea experience will transform into a more intimate kind of gathering that will take place in a specific space. And it was more like a themed experience. However, the term chasi still didn't exist. So apparently this term formed in even later, at an even later stage. And today, when we are speaking about tea space or chasi, actually we refer to two meanings. So the one probably more narrow meaning points to a specifically arranged kind of tea table or tea mat, while there is also a broader meaning of chasi, which refers to the entire space which is dedicated to the experience of tea culture. So if we dive into the definitions of tea space, I will not, bore you with the Chinese definitions, but anyway, they all refer to not just the immediate. So of course they will refer to the immediate arrangement of the tea table or the tea mat where the tea is being prepared and served, but they would also refer to a bigger space with an aesthetic value, which is constructed for not only for tea tasting with other people, but it is also dedicated to learning about tea. So we're not talking just about the tea table or the tea mat. We're talking already about whether it will be an entire room in the house or the specific building, or it's going to be a specific building itself, like the chaguan or the tea shops, if we can refer to them like this. So entire buildings dedicated to the experience, not just the tasting and the preparation, the serving of tea, but the experience and the learning about tea. So, summarizing, chasi or tea space might refer either to the immediate setup of a tea table or a tea mat where the tea is being directly prepared and served and enjoyed, whether alone or with friends. But in a broader sense, it can also refer to a specific dedicated tea space, whether a room, whether a corner of some room, or whether talking about an entire building dedicated not only to the direct serving and tasting of the tea, but also about the whole tea experience and the learning about tea and tea culture. So this is about tea space in general, or chasi. There are also the three essential elements when we are talking about chasi or tea space, referring here to the, let's say, the broader meaning of the tea space, or not just directly the tea table, but the entire tea space when we talk about it. There are three elements, the main elements that take part into defining the entire tea experience within this space for us. Those elements would be the light, the music, and the tea utensils that are being used to set up, to create, and to set up and to arrange this tea space. So just a short introduction for each one of them, as they are more or less self-explanatory, but still. So lighting, of course, is necessary for any kind of tea space. It is a basic requirement in order to be in tune with the general atmosphere of the tea ritual. Of course, it is best for the light to be soft and warm. This is something to have in mind when you create or set up your own tea space. A soft and warm, it would be best if it's a diffused light, that is in harmony with the entire atmosphere, and the tone of the tea ritual and the tea ceremony will create a comfortable and a relaxing environment, which will be in line with the mood required for the entire tea ceremony. That said, some spotlighting would also be beneficial because it can create a visual accent to some specific points of the tea space that might require additional attention, or just creating some kind of thematic focuses on specific places that need to be emphasized. For example, like the tea tray in front of you that you will use to prepare your tea. So after the light comes the music, and it is an essential element that will enhance the atmosphere of the tea space. There is a saying that a tea room without music is like a tea room without a soul. So music will be essential in the arrangement, the creation, the setup, and the arrangement of our tea space. Of course, we know that different kinds of rhythms and different level of volume will have a different influence on our minds and our spirits. So, of course, in order to create a calm and relaxing environment, it's best to choose some kind of soothing and slow beat, soft kind of music while all the while carefully managing the volume of the music. So there is also, for those of you who have had the luck to attend or maybe even to lead a tea ceremony with live music, this is also something that is quite popular habit in China. So while the tea host is performing the tea art and the tea ceremony, there will be an artist next to him, a music player, that will improvise by directly accompanying him while playing music. So I was leading a tea ceremony these days, and there was this great guqin player who actually improvised with his guqin while I was leading the ceremony. So he was tuning into the spirit and the atmosphere of the whole ritual, and created his music at this very moment. And I have to say, this is a great experience. So I can strongly recommend, if you have some musicians that might take care, that might take part in your tea ritual, do encourage them to demonstrate their art while participating in the tea ceremony. It creates a wonderful effect both for you and for all the people that are attending. So the last, but really definitely not the least important part.
Sorry, Boyka, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, sure.
I shared in the chat. I just shared my personal playlist for music that I usually use for tea. It's mainly like Chinese traditional music, or chants, like Buddhist mantras, stuff like that. I mean, everybody
Great.
has their own preferences, but maybe you'll find it useful. I just shared in the chat the link to the Spotify list.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And everyone, yeah, you're invited to share. If you have some music that you prefer to accompany your tea ritual, you're welcome to share. It's a good tea music is never enough, really.
Yes.
Yeah, so the last but really not the least important element of the chassis or the tea space are of course the tea utensils, and not only are they not the least important part, they're actually the backbone of the chassis of the tea space and the whole tea ritual itself, because actually a good performance depends so much on the selection and the arrangement of the tea tools and the tea utensils. So of course, we can also make like a subdivision. We are referring here first to the main tea utensils group, so the most essential tools like the brewing tools, for example, like teapots and gaiwans and teacups. So apparently one of the most essential elements, those need a careful selection, and their look, the materials that they are made of can enhance the aesthetic value of the tea space, and of course they will have a great impact on the sensory experience of the tea ceremony. We all know how a good teapot can enhance and can promote the best in tea, making it reveal itself from its best side, or how a not so good like pots and gaiwans made of not so good material will have also a direct impact on the aroma and the taste of tea that we are preparing and tasting. This goes also to the water preparation devices like tea kettles and water brewing kettles, and that also have a direct impact depending on the material they're made of on the water, and from there on the tea itself. And then we go to the auxiliary tea utensils, so these are actually accompanying tools that have like a supporting role in the preparation and the serving of the tea. Those might be the tea trays and the tea towels and the tea, like the teacup lids, etc. So those, of course, also have their role into the tea ritual. Mostly they will have an aesthetic value. They will add up to the aesthetic feeling and value of the tea mat setup and arrangement. So we can play, of course, with materials, with colors, you know, with structures there, in order to create a harmonized tea space for our ritual. And finally, of course, those also kind of auxiliary group of tea utensils. So those are the utensils for storing tea, like teapots and tea jars, that can also enhance the beauty and the aesthetic value of our tea mat setup. So this is, in short, on the subject of tea mat. And now I will, I guess you're all thirsty by this point, and I will pass the word to Misha to present our tea for today's meeting.
Yes, so I don't know if you guys noticed, but like lately we're getting lots of new teas, and basically what we're trying to do this year is we're trying to introduce our tea friends to higher-end green teas, and one of such teas is Anji Bai Cha. It's it's one of the most famous Chinese green teas, and it's like one of the most exquisite green teas. And its name means Anji white tea, but in fact it's a green tea. And basically it's known, the reason why it's called Bai Cha is that the brew of this tea is of a very pale color, and this tea is one of the early green teas that is harvested usually like in March or very early April, like before Qingming. And we had this tea like 2 years ago, and then last harvest wasn't up to our standards, and we were very pleased with this year's standards, so we decided to bring this tea back. And maybe Boyka will tell a few more words about this tea, and I will prepare it in the meantime, and we'll start tasting it.
Yeah, so actually Anji Bai Cha is a very interesting tea. As the name suggests, it's although it's called Anji white tea, which is the direct translation of its name, we're talking about a green tea here. I have to say that even in China, this is one of the examples that are often quoted about, the most common mistakes about Chinese teas. All in China, also lots of people, when they hear Anji Bai Cha, they will mistakenly think that we're talking about a white tea. No, it's a green tea, and as Misha said, it's due to the pale color of the tea infusion, but also and initially the name stemmed from the unusually pale colors of the leaves, color of the leaves themselves. So the leaves, it is true that they're considered deficient in chlorophyll, and for this reason they're they have a very, very pale green hue, like it's almost like whitish, and hence the name of the tea. And by the way, it is there is a really old legend that goes back almost to the Song Dynasty time. So we're talking about like 1,000 years ago, more or less. And this there is actually a saying about it's not really a saying, it's a recording, it's written evidence about a tea that was almost like was referred to, with that had some jade colored leaves. So when we're talking about jade, so jade, yes, it's usually green, but there are also kinds of jade, because they have a multitude of colors. The jade has a multitude, exists in multitude of colors in China, and one of those colors is actually very pale milky white. So the book in question, the written evidence in question mentioned the tea with jade colored leaves is exactly in this white context of the context of the white color of the jade. So it was much later, actually. It was at the end of the last century that some scientists, so to say, discovered a new tea tree variety, which had leaves in almost white color. And there is a belief that this same tea tree variety is an offspring of this same tea bush or tea variety mentioned in the ancient text hundreds of years ago. So as Misha said, this is a tea that is harvested in the earliest days of spring, where the temperatures are generally low, and it also has a very short time window of harvesting. So the time of the harvesting of this tea is really short. So of course, this makes for this causes like insufficient amount, let's say, so like a really limited quantity, and usually a higher price. So very often Anji Bai Cha is more expensive than even like a very famous, the very famous variety of Longjing, and I'm referring to the Siku Longjing, or the West Lake kind of Longjing, which comes from the core production area and is among the most expensive types of Longjing that are on the market. So apart from its rarity and its limited quantity and its price level, Anji Bai Cha has also another special feature, namely it is very rich in amino acids. So when we're talking about amino acid, we have to mention that this is the chemical compound that is responsible for the refreshing and the sweet part of the taste in tea. Not only that, of course, we are also referring to a specific kind of amino acid, namely the L-theanine, which has a direct influence on our inner state. So as we have discussed multiple times, the amino acids are responsible for helping us tune into this calmer and more meditative kind of state while we're still remaining alert. So it's a powerful neurotransmitter, the L-theanine, and one of the many amino acids found in tea. So Anji Bai Cha is believed to be 6 to 10 times richer in amino acids than the common green teas that are found on the market. So it is really an exclusive kind of tea.
And while Boyka was telling us about Anji Bai Cha, we warmed up it in a Gaiwan, and Dennis is gonna tell us, the notes that he picks up, and Dennis is actually very good at it. So, as a taster, he's one of our main tasters. Like,
it's always an honor to taste these kind of teas, and because some of them shine really well, and this particular one has a very pronounced smell that's very warming, and I would say it has the sweetness of the green tea. Doesn't have that freshness, the greenness, the grassiness of the green tea, but that is substituted with this roasty chestnut, more baked type of smell. And also we're gonna taste it right now because it tastes a little different. It tastes very sweet yet refreshing.
oh yeah, gonna warm up the water a little bit. I'm gonna give it a first brew, see what comes out of it. And it's personally one of my favorite teas, I have to say. If we're talking about green teas, my favorite is Mingding Ganlu, that we also have like this year, very limited amount, and this is my second favorite tea. So I'm very glad that this year it came back. We were a little bit worried because this year in China there was a big drought, which affected the output of teas. So, the output this year was lesser than usual, but the upside of it is that the teas that actually survived and came out, they came out much sweeter. And, it's, in terms of taste, it was a good harvest. In terms of quantities, much less teas are available this year. But in terms of taste, it's sweeter, more exquisite, and now I feel like I pick up notes of spinach, like baked spinach, very different than the dry tea, and very nice smell. So let's have a first cup. Cheers.
Actually, green tea is probably one of the categories that is where you can feel really Well, I like the correct word, but let's say there is an obvious difference between teas of let's say average to lower quality and a really good quality ones. So as both Misha and Dennis mentioned, when you smell, when you taste, even in the dry phase before brewing the tea itself, high quality or at least a good enough quality of green tea, you will always feel this inner sweetness hidden inside the green tea. And after brewing the tea and tasting the tea liquid, there will be this overwhelming feeling of freshness. It is like it is not by coincidence that the Chinese so often, when they taste green tea, they talk about they compare it to sipping the freshness of the spring in your cup. It's like the tea is the essence of the spring freshness itself. So this overwhelming feeling of freshness and of sweetness, but of course it's not the obvious sweetness of, let's say, some red tea, but it is more like a hidden feeling of sweetness and freshness that is really obvious and apparent in the high quality green teas. And I am really also happy that at Pet of Cha we are able to offer this kind of exclusive green teas, because those are really exclusive teas, also referring to the Mangding Ganlu that Misha mentioned just before, being 100% handmade tea, which is rare enough also to meet and to be able to enjoy.
And as Chris said before, like when you taste this tea, even the smell and the taste, like even the first cup, you don't feel this sharpness, the usual sharpness of green tea, because this tea is so smooth and well-rounded that you pick up lots of sweetness without this, harsh notes. And it's very interesting, very unusual for green tea. But you have this very typical like green tea notes of like nuttiness, right?
Yeah, it actually shines much more because it doesn't have that overwhelming grassiness to it.
Exactly. So the way those teas were processed removes from one part those grassy notes that otherwise might be present in other types or other let's say quality levels of green tea. So the absence actually of those harsh stringent notes that are usually connected to the presence of grassiness in the green tea helps these sweet and fresh notes that are otherwise more delicate and are easy to be overwhelmed by the harsher notes of by the harsher astringent and grassy notes. So when the harsher and astringent and grassy notes are absent, it's much easier for those otherwise more subtle and more delicate notes of freshness, of sweetness, of the so-called umami taste to shine through and reveal themselves to the fullest.
And I just want to show you what these leaves look like. You see how tender they are, and it's a bud and one leaf, and both leaves are like, even the leaf itself, they like small and very, very tender. So it's like beautiful to look at, even in a dry form. And you see the color of the brew. I don't know how good the camera translates it, but it's a pale, like a nice pale color of the brew. And I think we'll talk about it during our next Zoom session. We haven't discussed it yet, but it just crossed my mind that it could be a good topic. About since Jane said like it's a lake, it's really hot in the regions in Arizona, in Texas. I think it's good to talk about cooling teas and heating teas properties according to traditional Chinese medicine. And according to traditional Chinese medicine, I'm not a specialist on it. Boyka will correct me if I'm wrong. But the way I understand green teas, they have cooling properties. So even though it may sound counterintuitive to drink tea, like during the such hot weather, but actually it may help to cool off, to cool down your body.
Exactly, yes. I'm also not a specialist in traditional Chinese medicine, just to make it clear from the start. But in this narrow concept of the nature of different kinds of teas, yes, the green tea indeed has a cooling nature. And by the way, most of the peoples who were living in those places at these earth zones with constantly hot weather in their throughout their history, they have mostly consumed warm to hot beverages, not cool or even less so ice cold beverages. So it has its meaning. So first, it is also meant to help maintain, help maintain a body temperature that is closer to the one of the outside environment, so that people don't suffer so much, from the heat outside. And this is the point and the meaning for consuming warm or even hot beverages in hot weather. But also in the specific context of green tea, indeed, it is considered with having a cooling nature according to the traditional Chinese medicine, which translates into removing the excessive heat in the body. So again, in the context of the TCM, actually all kinds of inflammation, so the sickness and the illness which is born from the excess of heat in the body is associated with developing all kinds of inflammations. So hence the so-called anti-inflammatory effect that green tea is usually associated with is due exactly to this concept of this tea being able to remove the excess of heat which is accumulated in the body.
Yeah, and Lake says that Lake works in a tea house, in a Chinese tea house.
Mm-hmm.
He said that the owner of Ping says that lesser oxidized teas have cooling effect that beneficial for respiratory system, the skin, and anti-inflammatory, while higher oxidized teas promote blood circulation.
Yeah, exactly. Because usually, well, when there is an excessive heat, so translated into some kind of inflammation. So these are some organs that, inflammation typically appears there. So we have the lungs that are being easily infected or inflamed. And we also have the skin with all kinds of rashes, bumps and pimples, etc., etc. So those are all kinds of excessive heat being accumulated in the body, and those conditions are also supposed to be influenced by cooling by nature teas, like the green tea, let's say, or the white tea also has like a very rich history of removing the excessive heat in the body. And there are also certain minority groups in China that are known to treat conditions like high fever and measles, all of them pointing to excessive heat the presence of excessive heat in the body. So these kinds of inflammation show presence of excessive heat in the body. So those minority groups have a very long history of treating these kind of inflammations due to excessive heat in the body with white tea.
And in the meantime, we finished the second cup, me and Chris. So Chris, what do you pick up from the second cup? What kind of notes as the tea is developing?
Yes, there is always a slight difference between the first and the second cup. As Boyko mentioned, this tea definitely translates the word to be delicate as a green tea. That harshness is not here, but the brothiness, the umami, it's almost like a rich chicken broth.
Yeah, you can almost chew it.
This has this richness in the mouthfeel, and then when it's washed down, it develops the aftertaste based on that sweetness.
And what I like about this tea, this particular tea, that is not very common to like most green teas, that it has this citrusy notes, that it has this like pleasant sourness that I personally really love, you know, and I even eat like I can eat like a whole lemon without sugar or anything. And so every time I feel citrusy notes, for me it's you know, a very pleasant taste. But in this tea, don't get me wrong, it's like very light. It's not overpowering.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a good combination of sweetness and a little bit of this sourness and brothiness, and you know.
It doesn't make it lemon, you know, or any like type of citrusy. I'd say it adds like this zippiness to it, like in the end, like just a tiny bit of zest, zip in to balance it with the sweetness.
Oh, Jane, what are you drinking in this such hot weather? Jane?
I'm drinking honey orchid oolong.
Oh, okay. So how is it going in such heat?
It's so good.
Yeah, not getting you overly hot?
Oh no, I have a good air conditioner. I'm in.
And you have a ventilator too, I noticed.
Yeah, fan. Yeah, I don't really mind the hot weather.
Got it.
It
Do you
doesn't.
know how to brew? What's the best way to brew this tea, like ice cold, like to make it cold? I personally a big fan of cold teas in the summer. I just put, even sometimes like after I drink this tea, like brew it you know, Gongfu way or Western way. As long as the tea is not completely spent, that it still has some taste. I usually put this spent leaves in a tall cup. I fill it up with water and I put it in the fridge overnight for like 8 hours. And in the morning, I have very pleasant cold brew. And you can, of course, you know, do it with new leaves, not spent leaves. It will be even tastier. But
I love that type with the cold brew.
yeah. And Carolyn, what are you drinking? Oh, Carolyn, you have to unmute. Let me unmute you. Yeah.
I'm drinking my dong ding.
Oh yeah. You still have some left?
I do. I drink it every day. It's my favorite.
Yeah, Carolyn is a big fan of this Dongding tea.
Mhm.
I hear you. Can't blame you. I had it yesterday. I had it yesterday night. Yeah, while watching Blade Runner 2. It was a great experience. Tea and movie wise. What are the new exciting teas you drank lately? Carolyn?
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah,
Yesterday I had a peony oolong something. It was a tea sample that my friend Wendy sent me, but of course the place that she got it from is sold out. So who knows? I'll probably never have it again. But it tasted like peaches to me, and I really liked it. And you know that I like adding sweetener to my teas, and I didn't need it in that one. It was delicious by itself. It was like drinking a peach like smoothie. So I was really sad that I looked on their website and they didn't have any.
Yeah. Well, then you cherish it even more, you know, all this.
Yes.
All these unique moments. Yeah. I love it about tea that, you know, like any tea you drink, sooner or later, it will be gone, you know, and you have to learn to just, you know, cherish
That's
it. and
why
let
I
it
bought
go.
so much of the dong ding, so I don't have to worry about it running out anytime soon.
I hear you. How's this going with the sweetener in your tea? Like Carolyn developed like a very elaborate, in my mind, it's a very elaborate technique, you know, how to sweeten teas while brewing them gone full style, like putting like a quarter of a spoon or even less.
Yeah, I've gotten to where a lot of them a lot of the oolongs anymore, I don't use any of it. It's mainly just the black teas that I do now. I just can't. I haven't found any yet that I thought were good without it, but I don't use it for the white teas or most of the oolongs. The bug bitten one I've been drinking a lot of lately because I think that one's so fruity by itself that it's great. And yeah.
Gotcha. It's interesting because to me, like black teas, they are actually the sweetest usually teas, you know, like
That's funny. I don't feel like that at all. I don't know. Maybe it's the kind that I've been having. But I feel like they have this aftertaste, and that's what gets me. But I don't know. I've only had one so far that I didn't think was horrible by itself, and it was a Royal Union, like it was a golden tipped black tea, and it didn't look black at all. It was like golden looking leaves, and that one wasn't horrible by itself, but it still wasn't my first choice. So but I drink oolongs 90% of the time, so it's okay.
so for now, not horrible by itself is the highest praise for black teas. Interesting.
What kind of sweetener do you use, Carolyn?
Splenda.
Oh, Splenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Riyadh, what are you drinking now?
Honey and
The-
raw
I'm
sugar
drinking.
for a while.
I'm drinking the Golden Bud, the Jianghong black tea. Very good, very sweet,
Very sweet.
enjoyable. If you want to eat chocolate and you don't have chocolate at home, just drink this tea.
I know, I have
The
this.
beauty of the leaves also, the yellow, the color, the golden yellow, it's unbelievable. Just look at it at the beginning before putting any water. It's so pleasant, my God. And the smell is strong. Eh?
I know, it's
And
one
of
of
course, I
my
use the Gaiwan way of drinking it. I do prefer Gaiwan.
Yeah.
I prefer Gaiwan. I don't like too much Western way of drinking tea. So it's easier and the taste is stronger and different each time you brew it. So I love it. It's
And if you like this tea, next time you should try our non-smoky Lapsang Souchong. It's
a non-smoky Lapsang Souchong. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
non-smoky Lapsang Souchong. It's not the same as this one because we're trying to keep like every tea in our shop. We're trying to have like a, you know, so it would be different from the rest. There is no point of having, you know, two similar.
Yes.
But it also has this like sweet, like chocolatey taste.
I love that.
Yeah. And
I really
Carolyn,
like.
yeah, you should try it too. So
I actually think I have some. I've bought some of the non-smoky and some smoky, but I don't remember if it was from you or not, but it probably was. But I had a little, yeah.
if it was from us, you would not hate it. William, I don't know if William will unmute and tell us what's going on his tea table.
Oh, hey, what's up? I actually just finished my tea. I tend to go through it pretty quickly, but I had a volcano oolong that I got from a friend of mine in Carolyn's.
Jody, she's addicted to that stuff.
Yeah, I can't I think it's from Taiwan originally. It's really tightly ball rolled, like most Taiwanese oolongs are, but it was really good. Kind of tasted like chocolate milk to me.
Is it anything like specific about this tea that you can like tell it's like volcanic origins? Or I never had volcanic tea.
I think it's funny. I don't really like it.
I don't really have the frame of reference to discern any sort of specific volcanic quality. I guess I'd have to go to a volcano and taste the dirt a little bit to like really knowledge base, but it was good, and that's what matters most. So,
Boyka, do you know anything about like volcanic teas, like specifically? Do you have any like?
Not really. Actually, this is like
I've
totally.
seen it popping. It started popping up in my like feeds, like in tea communities.
Okay.
In the past year, I think it's a new trend. But
Probably it's
yeah.
unknown to me. I'll
Yeah.
have to check it out.
But supposedly volcanic, soil, it's very rich in minerals, and so it should be good.
Yeah, it's known for wineries to have sometimes have growing grapes on volcanic soil that brings some properties to it depending on the region. It does have more minerality just based on the region, but it's very uncommon. So actually, first time I hear about the tea.
Interesting.
William, do you pick up like any minerality in this tea? Like, is it extra mineral in your opinion? William?
yeah, it was a little bit earthy, but also sweet. I wouldn't say it was like super mineral dense. Like some teas can be, sort of like a Wu Yi oolong can sometimes be. But it was definitely more robust than a lot of comparable oolongs are, like the really low oxidation, like tightly ball rolled ones. So I really liked it because I find a lot of low oxidation oolongs don't have quite as much like flavor as I'd prefer. So I like it when it's a little more on the robust side.
It reminded me of a rock oolong.
Oh yeah, so it did remind you. Oh no, then yeah, I got you. I just want to show you the leaf again. Like this is the leaf, after it kind of opened up. So you see one bud, one leaf, but very small, very tender, very young leaf. So this is what this tea looks like, Anji Bai Cha. And right now, I think we're on our fifth brew. Yeah, something like
This
that.
is the fourth. Now you're gonna have the
All right, kind of forgot about it, but the good thing about this tea is that it's pretty hard to overbrew, and this is another quality of good Chinese, like high quality Chinese green teas. Unlike low quality teas, it's not as easy to overbrew. It's much more forgiving. So I still don't recommend forgetting about it in yoga one like I just did. But let's see if it did any damage, if it's still drinkable. Oh, it's actually very good. Came out actually full bodied, like without, once again, no bitterness. And I forgot it in Gai wine for like a couple of minutes.
I think that the very minimum amount of tannins in this tea it just can be overpowering.
Yeah. Amelia, what about you? You got this tea that arrive on time? Are you drinking Anji Bai Cha? You have
Yes, yes, I do. It's wonderful. I love it. My question with that tea, how many times can you stir that tea? How many times?
I don't know. This is our, I think, fifth brew,
Yeah.
and the taste is still strong. So it all depends, you know, how you brew it. I never put a limit. I don't know why some vendors they say you can brew this tea 5 times or 6 times or 7 times. You can brew it for as long as you feel the taste, you know, and
You know,
you're not
yeah,
tired of it. But green tea is usually, in my opinion, for my personal taste, they usually spend after 5 brews, they usually done. This one, this on a fifth brew, and the taste is still like, you know, it's all there.
Yeah.
I don't feel
Yeah.
it, you know, getting any weaker. What about
Yeah,
you? Amelia? What do you pick up from this tea?
for that tea where I picked out a little bit the melon, like 3 or 4 times, and the third or fourth step, I pick out a little bit the sweeter of the melon. Start with the asparagus and the spinach, and then kind of cantaloupe, kind of the kind of stuff with you. That's what I get. Very nice. And the beginning, kind of, I don't know, different at the beginning. I don't know how to describe, but remind me like, I don't know, it's very sweet, very nice, and then it start changing. And then the settle and that kind of note or cantaloupe or between spinach, asparagus, cantaloupe, kind of stuff. So
Yeah, asparagus. I also like. I feel like asparagus and like artichokes, kind of like
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
But a
Cantaloupe.
very
Interesting observation. Never thought of cantaloupe. like-
The sweet green stuff.
Mm.
Wait, that's
yeah,
a very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried our wild mango green tea?
White mango, I don't know if I ordered. I think
You
so.
ordered
I
it.
got
You
it.
ordered it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you tried.
yeah. Uh, uh, if I don't remember the map, because probably it's not that big in my head. But again, I remember now. They take the mango, but the mango got away very fast. Now I remember that. They take the mango in the beginning, and the third time brew, I remember the mango kind of disappeared a little bit.
Right, because this tea, like the way I feel it, this wild mango tea, it has this like fruity notes at the beginning, and then it translates as it's developing. It translates into like a more like mountainal oolong kind of notes, that more like floral, you know, become more floral, less fruity, more floral.
But now that you mention it, I didn't put concepts about, I know that you're going to talk about the tea. I will put it on my, sometimes I drink tea because I like the tea, and I drink it, I say, okay, I'm going to make note of the tea, wonderful. And then the day passed by, I never did any note or anything. I relax and meditate or something about, you know. So,
Interesting. And William said that he had a similar green tea called Ivory Blossom that was from albino tea plants. And it
really?
tasted like jalapeno with no spiciness, which
Really?
I don't know what it really means. To me, jalapeno is all about spiciness.
Where is the tea from? Where is the tea from?
I don't know. That's William. Yeah.
I got it from Imperial Tea Court in California. But yeah, it tasted like just like sweet peppers, but like specifically like jalapeno, like a little bit. I don't know. That was just the best description I like came up with when I had it a while ago, but it's very similar to Anji Bai Cha. Pretty much had like no bitterness whatsoever. Could brew it a bunch of times. It was good stuff. But I don't know if it was necessarily like my favorite green tea, but it's definitely worth trying because it's very different.
Yeah, sometimes
wow.
it's good
And
to
what-
just experiment, you know, and try, and you try something, you really like it, but it's not something you would be, you know, brewing like every day. So
And what is the name of the tea again? Do you mind to put it in the chat?
it's
Yeah, I'll do
Ivory
that.
Blossom. It's in the chat. It says Ivory Blossom.
Aubrey Blossom. Okay.
Ivory
And
Blossom.
I had a comment for Caroline. You know, unlike you with the black tea, I try many times and try many times to black tea. You know, I love pura tea, but the black tea, I had hard time sometimes to get it. So I'm unlike you with the black tea.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find one that really, unless I do it like Turkish tea or black tea, like in Turkey or something like that. But Kung Fu style, I don't got any black tea that really blessed me that well. So
Boyka, do you know anything about like albino tea plants? Because I'm not familiar, and you know, William mentioned albino tea plants, and I'm not familiar with that, and I wanted to see if you know something about it.
Yeah, other than the Anji Bai Cha, actually, I really haven't had any like more detailed information on this topic.
Interesting.
okay.
I just wonder, you know, if the color of the plant actually has any effect on the taste, you know, because it probably affects how it reacts onto the sunlight, you know, and what kind of element it stores. But I'm not a biologist, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, if we have a biologist, it would be interesting to hear their thoughts on it.
Yeah, how the environment would affect the plant itself.
What are your favorite teas? Like, what do
In
you like?
general, yeah, I have hard time drinking all the black teas. Usually prefer the green teas, but some of them are too sharp, too energizing. I would say like too green for me. That's why Anji Bai Cha is a very, very sweet deal for me, and because it's on a calmer side, much very, very pleasant. You can drink through it. You can forget about the leaves, come back and rebrew it again. It's almost not gonna lose it. And I also like white teas. Like also, it's generally based on the season. Where in the summer, so it's kind of much more pleasant to drink white teas and light green teas right now.
Yeah, and Riyadh loves yellow teas. I'm a big
yellow
fan.
tea.
I'm a
New
big
thing,
fan
yeah.
of yellow teas. And we here at Path of Cha, we're trying to promote yellow teas as much as possible, because it would be such a pity if yellow teas will disappear, you know, because it's a disappearing type of tea, because it's so hard to produce. And I read a study that says that it consists 0.001 maybe, or 0.01% of consumption of teas in China. So, you know, and yeah, we'd love more people to get introduced to yellow teas, because they have so much sweetness and so much depth that's going on without sharpness of green teas. To me, they are wonderful. But I always thought that today I'm like very surprised, because I always thought that red teas are among the most likable teas. They're like easy to like, because like red black teas. I'm talking about Hongcha because they have so much sweetness and like not much bitterness. And now, like Carolyn said, she's not a big fan, and Chris is not apparently a big fan of red teas either. What is it about red teas that you like dislike?
When they're too tannic, like they overpower the mouthfeel. They make it a little more dry for me, and the aftertaste. So it's less enjoyable for me in terms of the sensory feeling. And they're brewed at a hotter temperature, and I don't like teas brewed in a very high temperature.
But you like oolong tea.
Yes, yet long teas strike the very good middle ground between the green teas and the red teas.
Interesting.
Yeah. Lately, I've been also brewing the cold brew teas, and found that they actually develop different flavors because they're brewed in one step, and they extract all the flavors in one cup. Yet when you do gaiban, you have the transition of flavors, and then several teas have very different cups, one after another. So some teas are actually better to brew in one step, either cold or hot, so they can maintain all the flavors at once.
And Lake says that her mom calls black tea tobacco-y. Interesting. I actually like this tobacco-y quality tea. Boyka, what are your favorite ones? Oh, okay, let me put it this way. What is your least favorite?
It doesn't make the question easier in any way. Well, actually, it's really hard for me to name a specific kind of tea because for me, I really drink all kinds of tea. But, well, I don't know about you guys. For me, I mostly listen to what my body wants at this specific time of year. So now, for example, because here in Bulgaria, we're having a really cool summer. It's like the coolest summer. I can't even call it summer. I had my winter clothes literally until the other day in my wardrobe. So whenever the time gets cool like this, it's just I naturally reach out to warming kinds of teas like black tea or Hongcha. I refer to Hongcha here, or post-fermented kinds of teas like Liubao, for example, or Shu pour, the cooked pour kind of tea. And once it starts to get hot, my top of mind will always be a green tea or some kind of more delicate, non-compressed yellow tea, for example. So it will really depend, and each of the 60 types will give a specific, it will satisfy a specific need in the body at a given time and at given conditions. So for me, it's really appreciating a different side of the tea, which is in line and in tune with the surrounding, with the current climate and with the current temperature levels, if you wish so. So I really cannot say that I have preferred or least preferred kinds of tea. It's much more a matter of specific situation for me.
I realize that I'm much the same way. Like I always knew that I don't have like a favorite type of tea or least favorite type of tea. I like them all, but lately I realized that it's very season driven. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, like last spring, surprisingly not this one, but last spring I couldn't drink anything bought Japanese green teas. Like in the morning, I was like really craving Japanese green teas. And as much as I like oolongs, in the summer, I wasn't drinking oolongs at all. I was drinking, green teas or white teas. And then as winter comes, I switch to red teas and oolong teas, very, very season driven. And
Season
sometimes
driven,
I
yeah.
push myself to drink something other than what I really crave.
Indeed, it's really important because tea for Chinese, tea among other things also symbolizes this really strong connection between man and nature. And tea has a direct influence on our bodies, on how we feel, on how we perform. So it's really important when talking about tea experience, it's really important to be able to listen to what your body tells you and listen to what it needs and to hear what it needs and translating it into this specific type of tea. It's really not, it might sound, strange or difficult even at the first moment, but it really is about tuning in to what you need at that specific time.
And we didn't discuss it with Boyka yet, so we are looking now for Baozhong. And some of Boyka's friends from China, like a farmer from Taiwan, sent us his Baozhong. And I wanted to say yesterday I tried it for the first time. It was really, really good. I really love it, and it's like perfect time for, I think, for June, and I caught like as the June is almost over, it has, on one hand, it has this like floral freshness of tea and the creaminess of oolong. It was wonderful. I really, really liked it. So I think that, guys, soon we will have Baozhong in our shop. So everybody may be able to enjoy it. But yeah. And we already drank like a whole teapot. Not teapot, the whole kettle. This is like 1 liter of tea. So this is probably the 7th or 8th brew, and this tea is still going on. It still has taste.
Well, that definitely means something in terms of, quality grade and quality level about green tea. Of course, I wouldn't also put a top in when we're talking about a number of brews, but the natural trend is, the less oxidized, the less processed tea. The less oxidized is the tea, the less brews it can withstand. And yes, there is this general concept about green teas withstanding much less infusions than, say, a more processed kind of tea, like oolong, for example, or some kind of pu'er, whether it's sheng or shu. However, being able to brew the green tea, a certain green tea, for like 5 or 6 times and still feel it's very much alive is undoubtedly a sign that we're talking about a high quality and high grade kind of good tea. So it's a tea that still has something to give even after several brews.
And I can tell that even after we're gonna finish drinking this tea, I'm gonna be left with this finish, this aftertaste in my mouth, like a very pleasant one for a long time. I can feel it like already,
Yeah, this lingering aftertaste that literally sticks to your inner cheeks and your tongue. It's also a very good sign.
This is my last cup, so cheers, everyone. Cheers.
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 Cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
Guys, it was a pleasure having this session with you today. and we hope to schedule the new session sometime like mid-July, not too late in July. So in about like 3 weeks from now, maybe even a little less. And yeah, I think we're gonna. What do you think? What would be a good topic for the next session? Do you have any suggestions? What should we discuss? Anything that you guys interested in particular? All right, I guess we'll think of something. And yeah, a lake suggesting poor topic. So we'll think about this one, maybe. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us
Thank you.
today. And we hope you're gonna join us for the next session too.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Wonderful.
you, Leah. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Nice meeting you
Bye.
guys.
All the pretty people.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Awesome to have you. All righty, guys.